Elliot Kingsley built his empire on control and rules, but when Jada Rowe walks into his life with nothing but honesty and soul, he feels the first spark of chaos. Can love rewrite everything he thought he knew? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Kingsley & Co., one of Chicago's most successful venture firms. Elliot Kingsley, 32, stood looking out at the city skyline, his reflection revealing a man who had everything money could buy: designer suit, perfect haircut, and a confidence that came from never being told no. "Mr. Kingsley, your 9 o'clock is here," his assistant announced from the doorway. Elliot didn't turn around. "Send them in." He heard the door close and continued staring out at the city he practically owned. His company had funded half the startups that now dominated the Chicago business scene. He had rules for everything: his schedule, his diet, his investments, and especially his dating life. After watching his mother fall apart when his father left her for his secretary, a woman who understood him better, Elliot had made a promise to himself. He would only date women who matched him in every way, women with their own money, their own success, their own social standing. No complications, no messy emotions, no risk. The door opened again and Elliot turned, expecting his scheduled meeting. Instead, a young woman walked in, carrying a portfolio case and wearing sneakers, jeans, and a worn corduroy jacket. Her natural curls framed a face that wore no makeup, and her smile was genuine but tentative. "Sorry," she said. "I'm looking for Mr. Peterson's office. I have the mock-ups for his presentation." Elliot stared, momentarily caught off guard. "Peterson is down the hall. This is my office." "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said, backing toward the door. "The receptionist must have pointed me wrong. I'll get out of your hair." "Wait," Elliot said, surprising himself. "You're the designer?" She nodded. "Jada Rowe, freelance graphic designer. Mr. Peterson hired me to create some visuals for his pitch deck." "Let me see," Elliot said, gesturing to her portfolio. Jada hesitated, but then walked forward and laid her case on his desk. She pulled out several boards with colorful designs that somehow managed to be both professional and creative. "These are different," Elliot said, studying them. "Different good or different bad?" Jada asked, a hint of defensiveness in her voice. "Different interesting," Elliot replied, still examining the work. "Most of our designers use the same templates. These have personality." "I don't work in glass towers, so I don't have fancy software," Jada said with a shrug. "But I know how to make things stand out." For the first time in years, Elliot felt disarmed. There was no pretense in this woman, no attempt to impress him or flatter him. She didn't even seem to know who he was. "You designed these?" he asked, even though she'd already said she had. "Yeah, they're rough, I know. I don't work in glass towers, so I don't have fancy software." She smiled without flinching. It wasn't sarcasm, it was honesty. "I'll make sure Peterson gets these," Elliot said, closing the portfolio. "Thanks, but I should deliver them myself. It's my job," Jada said, reaching for her work. Their fingers brushed as she took the portfolio, and Elliot felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. A spark. Not just attraction, but curiosity. "I'm Elliot Kingsley," he said, extending his hand. "CEO of Kingsley & Co. "Nice to meet you," Jada replied, shaking his hand briefly. "Like I said, I'm Jada, just a freelancer passing through." She turned to leave, and Elliot found himself wanting to stop her, to learn more about this woman who seemed so unconcerned with impressing him. "Wait," he said again. "Would you have time for a coffee? I'd like to talk to you about possibly doing some work for other projects we have." Jada looked at her watch. "Sorry, I can't today. I have to get to my other job in 30 minutes. I bartend at the Blue Note." "The jazz club?" Elliot asked. "Yeah. My dad used to play there. Now I serve drinks and listen to music 3 nights a week." "Maybe I'll stop by sometime," Elliot said. Jada gave him a look that said she'd heard that line before. "Sure," she said, clearly not believing him. "Mr. Peterson's office is down the hall, right?" "Third door on the left," Elliot confirmed. "Thanks," she said, and then she was gone. Elliot stared at the empty doorway for a long moment. His assistant poked her head in. "Your 9 o'clock is still waiting, Mr. Kingsley." "Right," Elliot said, shaking off the strange encounter. "Send them in." But for the rest of the day, he couldn't get Jada Rowe out of his mind. The Blue Note was crowded that night, filled with the smooth sounds of a saxophone and the murmur of conversation. Jada moved efficiently behind the bar, mixing drinks and chatting with regulars. "Jada, honey, can I get another one of your special martinis, Mrs. Johnson?" A widow in her 70s who came every Wednesday pushed her empty glass forward. "Coming right up, Mrs. J." Jada smiled, already reaching for the shaker. How's your grandson doing at college? Oh, he's thriving. Sent me pictures of his dorm room all decorated. That boy has your eye for design. Jada laughed. I just helped him pick out a bedspread. That's hardly design. Don't sell yourself short, Mrs. Johnson wagged a finger. You've got talent, girl. More than most of these fancy designers with their degrees. From your lips to God's ears, Jada said, placing the fresh martini in front of her. Maybe someday I'll have my own design firm instead of mixing drinks. You will, Mrs. Johnson said with conviction. Mark my words. Jada was about to respond when she saw him, Elliot Kingsley, standing at the entrance, looking out of place in his expensive suit. Her first instinct was to duck behind the bar, but it was too late. He'd spotted her. He made his way to the bar, ignoring the looks from the regular patrons who could spot an outsider from a mile away. You came, Jada said, surprised. I said I would, Elliot replied, taking a seat at the bar. What do you recommend? Depends on what you like. We're not exactly serving $1,000 bottles of champagne here. I'll have whatever you think is good. Jada studied him for a moment, then turned to mix a drink. She placed a dark amber liquid in a tumbler in front of him. Old-fashioned, classic, simple, honest. Elliot took a sip and nodded. It's good. My dad's recipe, Jada said. He always said you can tell a lot about a person by how they drink their whiskey. And what does this say about me? Elliot asked. That you're willing to try something new, Jada replied with a slight smile. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other customers. Elliot watched as she moved down the bar, chatting easily with everyone, remembering names and drink preferences. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, and yet she impressed him more than any of the polished professional women he usually dated. An older man appeared on stage and took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special treat tonight. Our very own Jada Rowe is going to sing for us. The crowd cheered, and Elliot looked surprised as Jada handed her apron to another bartender and made her way to the stage. Thanks, Uncle Ray, she said, taking the mic. This was my dad's favorite song. For those who knew Marcus Rowe, this one's for him. The band began to play, and Jada's voice filled the room, rich, soulful, and surprisingly powerful. She sang a jazz standard about lost love and new beginnings, and Elliot couldn't take his eyes off her. When she finished, the crowd erupted in applause. Jada gave a small bow and returned to the bar, her face flushed with emotion. That was beautiful, Elliot said when she returned. Thanks, Jada replied, tying her apron back on. Dad taught me to sing before I could talk, according to family legend. Your father was Marcus Rowe, the jazz musician? Jada looked surprised. You knew of him? I have one of his albums. My mother used to play it when I was young. Small world, Jada said, looking at Elliot with new interest. He died 2 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry, Elliot said, and he meant it. Me too, Jada replied. He was everything to me. Raised me by himself after my mom left when I was 3. Taught me everything important. Music, art, how to see beauty in unexpected places. He sounds like an amazing man. He was, Jada said, then changed the subject. So, why are you really here, Mr. Kingsley? I doubt you came all this way for an old-fashioned. Elliot, he corrected, and I came because I wanted to see you again. Jada raised an eyebrow. Why? I'm sure you've got plenty of women in your world who'd love your attention. That's exactly why, Elliot said. You're the first woman I've met in years who doesn't seem to care who I am or what I can do for her. Because I don't, Jada said simply. No offense, but I've learned not to get too excited about promises from men in expensive suits. They tend to disappear when things get real. Before Elliot could respond, a commotion broke out at the other end of the bar. 2 men were arguing loudly, their voices rising above the music. Excuse me, Jada said, moving quickly to intervene. Gentlemen, we don't do that here. You either calm down or take it outside. The larger of the 2 men glared at her. Mind your business, sweetheart. This is my business, Jada said firmly, and I'm not your sweetheart. The man took a step toward her, and Elliot was on his feet immediately, moving to stand beside Jada. The lady asked you to calm down, he said, his voice cold and authoritative. The man sized up Elliot's expensive suit and backed down. Whatever. This place is dead anyway. He and his friend stormed out. I could have handled that, Jada said once they were gone. I know, Elliot replied, but you shouldn't have to. Jada studied him for a moment. Thanks, she finally said, but I've been taking care of myself for a long time. I don't doubt it, Elliot said. You're clearly capable, but everyone needs backup sometimes. The rest of the evening passed more comfortably. Elliot stayed until closing, watching Jada work, occasionally catching her eye and sharing a smile. When the last customer left, he was still there. Need a ride home? He asked as she put on her jacket. I have my car, Jada said, but thanks. Then can I take you to dinner tomorrow night? Elliot asked. A real dinner, not bar food. Jada hesitated. Why? Because I want to get to know you better, Elliot said honestly. Look, I'm flattered, but we live in different worlds. You're a CEO in a glass tower. I'm a bartender and freelance designer who shops at thrift stores. What could we possibly have in common? I don't know yet, Elliot admitted. That's why I want to find out. Jada considered him for a long moment. One dinner, she finally said, but not tomorrow. I have a poetry open mic night I never miss. Friday? Friday works, Elliot said, trying to hide his surprise at her mention of poetry. I'll pick you up at 7. I'll meet you there, Jada countered. Text me the address. She took his phone and entered her number. Good night, Elliot, she said, handing it back. Good night, Jada, he replied, watching as she walked to her car, a battered old Honda that had seen better days. As he got into his sleek luxury sedan, Elliot realized he was smiling. For the first time in years, he was breaking his own rules, and it felt good. You did what? Victoria Astor's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose in disbelief as she set down her mimosa. They were having brunch at Elliot's penthouse, as they did every Sunday, a tradition among their elite social circle. I asked her to dinner, Elliot repeated, not looking up from his newspaper. A bartender. Who makes graphics on the side? Victoria shook her head. Elliot, darling, are you having some kind of crisis? James Parker, Elliot's oldest friend and business partner, laughed. Leave him alone, Vic. Maybe Elliot's finally decided to live a little. I'm just having dinner with her, Elliot said, annoyed by their reactions. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal, Victoria insisted. You're Elliot Kingsley. You have a reputation to maintain. What would your mother say? Elliot's jaw tightened. My mother doesn't dictate my dating life. But she did teach you better than this, Victoria pressed. Remember what happened to your parents. Your father threw away 20 years of marriage for a secretary because she made him feel young again. Do you want to end up like him? Jada is nothing like that, Elliot snapped. She's talented, independent, and completely unimpressed by my money or status. That's what they all say at first, Victoria warned. But trust me, once she sees how the other half lives, she'll change her tune. They always do. Elliot stood up, his patience gone. I think brunch is over. Victoria sighed dramatically. Fine, be that way. But don't say I didn't warn you when she's maxing out your credit cards in 6 months. After they left, Elliot poured himself a scotch and walked out onto his balcony. The city spread out beneath him, a concrete landscape of power and prestige that he'd spent his life conquering. He'd always believed that the key to happiness was control over his business, his emotions, his relationships. But meeting Jada had stirred something inside him. She lived with a freedom he'd never allowed himself. She followed her passions, spoke her mind, and didn't seem to care what anyone thought. His phone rang, and his mother's name flashed on the screen. Victoria must have called her already. He let it go to voicemail. For once, he didn't want to hear her warnings or her reminders about his father's betrayal. Instead, he found himself looking up Marcus Rose music and playing it through his expensive sound system. The rich, soulful jazz filled his sterile penthouse, bringing warmth to the cold, modern space. Friday couldn't come soon enough. At Jada's small apartment above her father's old record store, she was having second thoughts. Her best friend, Tamika, sat on her bed, watching as Jada tried on and discarded outfit after outfit. Girl, just wear what you normally wear, Tamika advised. If he doesn't like you in your regular clothes, he's not worth your time. I know, Jada sighed, holding up a vintage dress. I just don't want to look like I don't belong at whatever fancy restaurant he's taking me to. Since when do you care about belonging? Tamika asked. The Jada I know walks into any room like she owns it, whether she's in sneakers or heels. Jada smiled, remembering her father's advice. Walk with your head high, baby girl. You might not have what they have, but you've got what they need. Soul. You're right, she said, putting down the dress and picking up her favorite corduroy jacket. I'm not changing who I am for a man, even one with a corner office and a view. That's my girl, Tamika grinned. Besides, rich boys like him are just slumming it when they date girls like us. He'll get his fill of real life and then go back to dating socialites who know which fork to use for salad. Maybe, Jada said, though something told her Elliot was different. There had been a moment at the bar when he'd defended her against the rowdy customer, that she'd seen something in his eyes, not condescension or charity, but genuine respect. Still, she'd been burned before. Her last boyfriend, a law student from a wealthy family, had hidden her from his parents and friends, treating her like a secret he was ashamed of. When she'd finally confronted him, he'd admitted he could never bring someone like her home to meet his family. That wouldn't happen again. She wouldn't let it. "Just be careful," Tamika said, more serious now. "Men like him are used to getting what they want. Don't let him think you're just another conquest." "Trust me," Jada replied, her chin lifting with determination. "If Elliot Kingsley wants to date me, he's going to have to accept all of me. My job, my dreams, my background. I'm not here to teach him how to feel, and I'm definitely not here to be his charity case." Little did she know, across town, Elliot was thinking of her and wondering if, for the first time in his life, he was ready to break every rule he'd ever made. Friday evening arrived, and Jada stood outside Bellini's, one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants. She checked her phone. 6:55 p.m. She was early, but she hated being late. She wore her best jeans, a flowing burgundy top, and her father's old leather jacket that she'd carefully maintained over the years. Her natural curls were pulled back with a vintage scarf, and she wore the small gold earrings her father had given her for her 21st birthday. People in designer clothes walked past her into the restaurant, some giving her curious looks. Jada lifted her chin, refusing to feel intimidated. She belonged here as much as anyone else. A sleek black car pulled up, and Elliot stepped out. He wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than her rent, but he'd skipped the tie, making him look slightly less formal than usual. "You're here," he said, sounding almost surprised. "I said I would be," Jada replied with a small smile. "You look beautiful," Elliot said, his eyes taking her in. "Thanks. I don't own anything fancy, so this is as good as it gets." Elliot shook his head. "You don't need fancy. You light up the room just as you are." The compliment caught her off guard, and she felt a blush creep into her cheeks. "Shall we go in?" she asked, changing the subject. Inside, the maitre d' practically bowed to Elliot. "Mr. Kingsley, your usual table is ready." They were led to a private corner with a view of the Chicago skyline. Candles flickered on the table, and soft classical music played in the background. It was elegant, expensive, and intimidating. "You come here often?" Jada asked, glancing at the menu with no prices listed. "Sometimes for business dinners," Elliot replied. "The food is excellent." "I'm sure it is," Jada said, scanning the menu with growing anxiety. She didn't recognize half the dishes, and she was certain she couldn't afford any of them. Elliot noticed her discomfort. "May I order for us? The chef here creates special dishes that aren't on the menu." Jada hesitated, then nodded. "Sure. Just nothing too weird, okay? I'm a simple girl with simple tastes." "Trust me," Elliot said, and for some reason she did. He ordered in fluent Italian, impressing both the waiter and Jada. When the waiter left, she raised an eyebrow at him. "Hidden talents, Mr. Kingsley?" Elliot smiled. "My mother insisted I learn. She believes education is the key to success." "She sounds like a strong woman." "She is," Elliot agreed. "After my father left us for his secretary, she rebuilt her life from scratch. She taught me that the only people you can trust are those who have nothing to gain from you." "Is that why you only date women in your social circle?" Jada asked directly. Elliot looked surprised. "You've done your research. Google exists," Jada shrugged. "Plus, the bartender at your company's holiday party last year is a friend of mine. She told me about your policy." "It's not a policy," Elliot defended. "It's a preference. Based on fear," Jada pointed out. "Based on experience," Elliot countered. "My father destroyed my mother when he left her for someone simpler, someone who made him feel young and free. I watched her heart break, and I promised myself I'd never put myself in that position." "So you date women who want you for your money and connections, instead of women who might want you for yourself?" Jada asked. "Sounds backward to me." "It's safer," Elliot said. "We understand each other. No one gets hurt because no one expects too much." "That's not dating," Jada said. "That's a business arrangement." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of their first course, delicate plates of pasta that smelled heavenly. "Tell me about your father," Elliot said, changing the subject. "You said he raised you alone." Jada's expression softened. "Dad was everything to me. He was a jazz musician who never made it big, but he played with heart. After Mom left, he took me to every gig. I grew up in jazz clubs and record stores, surrounded by music and dreamers." "Sounds like a colorful childhood." "It was," Jada smiled. "We never had much money, but we had love. Dad taught me to see beauty in unexpected places. He always said, 'Baby girl, the richest people are the ones who can find joy in simple things.'" "He sounds wise," Elliot said. He was. Before he died, He made me promise I'd never settle, not in my work, not in love. He said, "Don't let him love you for your difference. Let him love you because you're the only truth in a world full of fakes." Elliot was quiet for a moment. "And have you found that? Someone who loves you for being real?" "Not yet," Jada admitted. "Most men either see me as exotic or as a project. They want to help me, or they want to show off how open-minded they are by dating a girl from the wrong side of the tracks." "And is that what you think I'm doing?" Elliot asked quietly. Jada looked him straight in the eyes. "I don't know yet. Why don't you tell me why we're really here, Elliot? What do you want from me?" Elliot considered her question carefully. "Honestly, I'm not sure. I just know that when I'm with you, I feel different. You make me question things I've always taken for granted." "That's not an answer. It's the most honest one I have right now," Elliot said. "I'm drawn to you, Jada. You're unlike anyone I've ever met. You don't pretend, you don't flatter, and you don't seem impressed by anything about me except maybe my taste in jazz." Jada couldn't help but smile. "Your taste in jazz is pretty good. For a suit." The rest of dinner passed more comfortably. They discovered a shared love of old movies, debated the best pizza in Chicago, and found themselves laughing more than either had expected. By dessert, Jada had relaxed enough to tell him about her dream of opening her own design studio someday. "Why don't you?" Elliot asked. "Your work is excellent." "Money," Jada said simply. "Starting a business takes capital. Between rent, my student loans, and keeping my dad's record shop open, I barely break even each month." "I could help," Elliot offered immediately. Jada's expression closed off. "No thanks, I don't take handouts." "It wouldn't be a handout," Elliot argued. "It would be an investment. I invest in promising businesses every day." "And would you be offering the same deal to any talented designer, or just the one you're trying to impress over dinner?" Jada challenged. Elliot had the grace to look embarrassed. "Point taken, but my offer stands. As a legitimate business proposition, not a personal favor." "I'll think about it," Jada said, though they both knew she wouldn't. After dinner, they walked along the river, the city lights reflecting on the water. Despite the chilly evening, Jada felt warm beside Elliot. "There's an art exhibition next weekend," Elliot said. "Modern pieces, very avant-garde. Would you like to go with me?" Jada hesitated. "I'm not sure that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because this feels like the beginning of something, and I'm not sure it's something that can work," Jada admitted. "We come from different worlds, Elliot. Your friends already think I'm beneath you. Don't deny it. I saw how that hostess looked at me, and my friends think you're just slumming it until you get bored." "What do you think?" Elliot asked, stepping closer to her. "I think I like you more than I expected to," Jada confessed, "and that scares me." "It scares me too," Elliot admitted. "But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we both need to be scared a little." Under the moonlight with the city as their witness, Elliot leaned down and kissed her. Jada felt herself responding, her arms sliding around his neck as his wrapped around her waist. The kiss was gentle at first, then deeper, more urgent. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathless. "I'm not here to teach you how to feel," Jada whispered, remembering her promise to herself. "Good," Elliot replied, his forehead resting against hers. "I want you to teach me how to stay." The next morning, Elliot woke to the sound of his phone ringing. His mother's name flashed on the screen. This time he answered. "Hello, Mother." "Elliot, darling, we need to talk." Margaret Kingsley's voice was smooth as silk, but sharp as a blade. "Victoria tells me you're seeing someone inappropriate." Elliot sighed, sitting up in bed. "Victoria needs to mind her own business." "Your relationships are my business," Margaret insisted, "especially when they could affect the company." "Who is this girl?" "Victoria said she's some sort of bartender. Her name is Jada Rowe. She's a talented graphic designer who also works at a jazz club, and we've had exactly one date, so it's hardly a relationship." "Yet," Margaret said. "Elliot, have you forgotten everything I taught you? Men like you don't survive in that world. You're too big for small dreams." "Maybe I'm tired of big dreams," Elliot said. "Maybe I want something real for a change." "Real?" Margaret scoffed. "What's real about a girl from the wrong side of town suddenly interested in a wealthy bachelor? Don't be naive, Elliot. She wants what she can get from you." "You don't know her," Elliot said, his temper rising. "She turned down my offer to invest in her business because she didn't want to mix personal and professional." "A clever tactic," Margaret said dismissively. "She's playing hard to get. Trust me, I've seen it before. Your father thought his secretary loved him for himself too. 5 years and half his fortune later, he realized his mistake." "Jada is nothing like that," Elliot insisted. They never are, until they are, Margaret said. I'm having a dinner party next Saturday. Bring her. Let's see what she's really made of. Before Elliot could protest, his mother hung up. He tossed his phone onto the bed, frustrated. The last thing he wanted was to subject Jada to his mother's scrutiny, but refusing would only make Margaret more suspicious. His phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Jada. Thanks for dinner, I had a good time. Simple, honest, no games. Elliot found himself smiling as he typed back, Me too. Art exhibition next weekend? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally. Okay, but this time I picked the place for dinner after. Somewhere normal people eat. Elliot laughed out loud. Deal. The art exhibition was held in a converted warehouse in one of Chicago's up-and-coming neighborhoods. The space was filled with Chicago's elite, sipping champagne and discussing pieces that cost more than most people's annual salaries. Jada wore a vintage dress she'd found at her favorite thrift store, paired with her comfortable boots. She felt out of place among the designer gowns and custom suits, but she refused to show it. What do you think? Elliot asked, gesturing to a large canvas covered in what looked like random splashes of color. I think someone's making a lot of money for very little effort, Jada said honestly. Elliot laughed. That little effort is priced at $80,000. Jada nearly choked on her champagne. You're kidding. Welcome to the art world, Elliot said. It's not about talent, it's about who you know and who endorses your work. That's depressing, Jada said. Art should be about expression, not connections. Most things in life are about connections, Elliot shrugged. Business, art, success, it's all about who you know. Not where I come from, Jada countered. In my world, it's about working hard and being good at what you do. And how's that working out? Elliot asked, then immediately regretted it when he saw the hurt flash across Jada's face. I'm doing just fine, she said stiffly. I may not have a penthouse or a company with my name on it, but I sleep well at night knowing I've earned every dollar in my bank account. I didn't mean, Elliot began, but was interrupted by a voice that made him tense. Elliot, darling, I didn't expect to see you here. Victoria Astor glided toward them, elegant in a designer gown, her eyes fixed on Jada with cool assessment. Victoria, Elliot nodded. You remember Jada? Of course, Victoria said, her smile not reaching her eyes. The bartender who makes pretty pictures. Jada straightened her spine. And you're the friend who gossips to his mother. Nice to see you again. Victoria's smile faltered. I was just looking out for Elliot's best interests. We've been friends since childhood, you know. Almost like family. Good friends don't spread gossip, Jada said evenly. Victoria turned to Elliot. Your mother mentioned you're coming to her dinner party next weekend. I'll be there too, of course. Will you be bringing company? The way she said company made it clear what she thought of Jada. Yes, I will, Elliot said firmly, putting his arm around Jada's waist. Jada will be joining us. Jada looked up at him in surprise. This was the first she'd heard of any dinner party. How progressive of you, Victoria said with a thin smile. Margaret will be thrilled. After Victoria walked away, Jada stepped out of Elliot's embrace. Dinner party? With your mother? I was going to ask you properly, Elliot said apologetically. My mother called and insisted. I was going to suggest we do something else instead. No, Jada said, her jaw set in determination. I want to go. Are you sure? My mother can be difficult. I've dealt with difficult people my whole life, Jada said. I'm not afraid of your mother, Elliot. But the truth was, she was nervous. Meeting Elliot's mother meant this was becoming something real, something beyond a few casual dates. It meant opening herself up to judgment and possibly rejection. You don't have to prove anything to them, Elliot said, reading her thoughts. Yes, I do, Jada replied. And so do you. The week passed quickly. Jada worked extra shifts at the Blue Note to cover for a sick colleague, finished a freelance project for a local coffee shop, and spent hours browsing thrift stores for something appropriate to wear to dinner at the Kingsley mansion. Tamika sat on Jada's bed watching her try on outfits. Just wear what you normally wear, she advised. If they don't like you for you, then what's the point? I know, Jada sighed, but I don't want to embarrass Elliot either. Girl, if he's embarrassed by you, he doesn't deserve you, Tamika said firmly. It's not that simple, Jada argued. This dinner is important to him. His mother is important to him. And are you important to him? Tamika asked. Important enough that he'll stand up for you when his mother inevitably looks down her nose at you? I think so, Jada said, though doubt crept into her voice. We've been seeing each other for almost 3 weeks now. He's different when we're alone, more real, less guarded. 3 weeks isn't long. Tamika warned. Men like him, they like to slum it for a while, get a taste of real life, then go back to their penthouses and their trophy wives. Elliot's not like that, Jada insisted, though a small voice in her head whispered that she couldn't be sure. In the end, she chose a simple black dress she'd found at a vintage shop. It was elegant in its simplicity, with clean lines and a classic cut. She paired it with her mother's pearl earrings, the only thing she had left from the woman who'd abandoned her, and her best pair of heels. When Elliot picked her up, his expression told her she'd made the right choice. "You look stunning," he said, his eyes warm with admiration. "Thanks," Jada said, feeling self-conscious. "Is it okay for dinner with your mother?" "It's perfect," Elliot assured her. "But remember, it doesn't matter what they think. I'm not dating them. I'm dating you." Dating. The word hung between them, official and a little frightening. They hadn't put a label on what they were doing until now. "Is that what we're doing?" Jada asked softly. "Dating?" Elliot took her hand. "I'd like to think so, unless you have objections." Jada smiled. "No objections, just taking it one day at a time." "One day at a time sounds perfect," Elliot agreed, bringing her hand to his lips. The Kingsley Mansion was exactly what Jada had expected, a sprawling estate in Chicago's most exclusive suburb, with manicured gardens and a circular driveway lined with luxury cars. A butler opened the door and led them through a marble-floored foyer into a living room that could have been featured in Architectural Digest. Margaret Kingsley rose from an antique sofa, elegant in a designer suit, her silver hair perfectly styled. Her face was a careful mask of politeness, but her eyes were cold as they assessed Jada. "Mother, this is Jada Rowe," Elliot said. "Jada, my mother, Margaret Kingsley." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Kingsley," Jada said, extending her hand. Margaret took it briefly. "Indeed, Elliot has mentioned you. You work at a bar, I understand." "A jazz club," Jada corrected gently. "The Blue Note. But my primary work is graphic design." "How creative," Margaret said, in a tone that suggested creativity wasn't something she particularly valued. "And where did you study?" "Chicago City College," Jada replied. "I had a partial scholarship." "I see," Margaret said, in a way that made it clear she found this lacking. "Well, the other guests are arriving, shall we?" The dinner party was a gathering of Chicago's elite, business leaders, old money families, and a few celebrities. Victoria was there with her husband, a banking executive 20 years her senior. She air-kissed Jada's cheeks with false warmth, then immediately pulled her into conversation with several other women. "So, Jada, tell us how you met Elliot," one woman asked. "It's so unusual for him to date outside his circle." "We met at his office," Jada said simply. "I was delivering design work for a client." "How quaint," Victoria said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "And what does your family think of you dating one of Chicago's most eligible bachelors?" "My father passed away 2 years ago," Jada said, "but he taught me to judge people by their character, not their bank accounts." "How democratic of him," Victoria said with a slight smirk. "And does Elliot pass the character test?" "So far," Jada replied evenly. Across the room, Elliot was trapped in conversation with his mother and several business associates. He kept glancing at Jada, clearly concerned about how she was being treated. "Your young lady is quite unusual, Elliot," one older man commented. "Not your usual type." "No, she isn't," Elliot agreed. "She's better." Margaret frowned. "Elliot, darling, no one is questioning her to charm. But surely you must see that there are certain practical considerations." "What considerations, Mother?" Elliot asked, his tone warning her to tread carefully. "Social compatibility for one," Margaret said. "Business connections for another. The right wife can open doors that might otherwise remain closed." "Wife?" Elliot raised an eyebrow. "We've been dating for 3 weeks. No one is talking about marriage." "Not yet," Margaret agreed, "but it's never too early to think about long-term suitability. Men in your position have responsibilities, Elliot. To the family name, to the business. The only responsibility I have is to my own happiness," Elliot said firmly. "That's what your father said," Margaret replied sharply, "right before he threw away 20 years of marriage for a pretty face and a carefree attitude." Before Elliot could respond, dinner was announced. He made his way to Jada's side, taking her hand supportively. "How are you holding up?" he whispered. "I've been better," Jada admitted. "Your friend Victoria is a piece of work." "Ignore her," Elliot advised. "She's jealous." "Of what?" "Of the way I look at you," Elliot said simply. The dinner itself was an elaborate affair, multiple courses served on fine china by silent staff. Jada watched carefully to see which fork others used, determined not to embarrass herself or Elliot. The conversation flowed around topics she knew little about: stock portfolios, European vacations, private schools. Occasionally someone would ask her a question, usually with an air of condescension barely disguised as interest. "And what are your ambitions, Jada?" Margaret asked during dessert, silencing the table. "Surely you don't plan to tend bar forever." "I want to open my own design studio," Jada said confidently. "I've been saving, and I'm building my client base." "How enterprising," Margaret said, "though it must be difficult to save much on a bartender's salary." "Mother," Elliot warned. "It's a legitimate question," Margaret defended. "Career ambition is important in a relationship. You've always said so yourself, Elliot." "I'm doing fine," Jada said firmly. "I don't measure success by the size of my bank account, Mrs. Kingsley. I measure it by whether I'm proud of the work I do." "A lovely sentiment." Margaret smiled thinly. "Though sentiment doesn't pay bills, does it?" "No, hard work does," Jada replied. "Something I'm not afraid of." The tension at the table was palpable. Elliot placed his hand over Jada's under the table, a silent show of support. After dinner, the guests moved to the terrace for coffee and liqueurs. Jada excused herself to use the restroom, needing a moment alone to catch her breath. The evening had been more stressful than she'd anticipated, with every word, every gesture being silently judged. As she was returning, she overheard Margaret and Victoria talking in the library, the door slightly ajar. "She's completely wrong for him," Victoria was saying. "No connections, no family background, nothing to offer except a pretty face." "Don't worry," Margaret replied. "It won't last. Elliot is just going through a phase. He's rebelling against the pressure to settle down. Once he gets it out of his system, he'll come back to his senses." "And if he doesn't?" Victoria asked. "Then I'll have to make him see reason," Margaret said firmly. "I didn't rebuild this family's fortune and reputation just to watch him throw it away on some girl from the wrong side of the tracks. Men like Elliot don't survive in that world. He's too big for small dreams." Jada backed away, her heart pounding. She'd known Margaret wouldn't approve of her, but hearing the cold dismissal in her voice was still painful. What hurt more was the implication that Elliot would eventually tire of her, that she was just a temporary distraction. She found Elliot on the terrace, looking out at the garden. "I need to go," she said quietly. Elliot turned, concern in his eyes. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Jada lied. "I just remembered I promised to help Tamika with something tomorrow morning. I need to get some sleep." Elliot clearly didn't believe her, but he nodded. "I'll take you home." The drive back to her apartment was quiet. Jada stared out the window, wondering if she was making a mistake getting involved with a man whose world was so different from hers, whose mother was already plotting to end their relationship. When they arrived at her building, Elliot turned off the engine. "Are you going to tell me what really happened?" Jada sighed. "I overheard your mother and Victoria talking. They don't think I'm good enough for you. Your mother said you're just going through a phase, and once you get it out of your system, you'll come back to your senses." Elliot's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry you heard that. My mother doesn't speak for me." "Doesn't she?" Jada challenged. "You've lived your whole life by her rules, Elliot. Only dating women she approves of, women from your world. What happens when the novelty of dating me wears off? Will you decide she was right all along?" "Is that what you think of me?" Elliot asked, hurt in his voice. "That you're just some novelty?" "I don't know what to think," Jada admitted. "We've known each other for less than a month. Maybe they're right. Maybe we're kidding ourselves, thinking this could work." "I don't believe that," Elliot said firmly. "What I feel for you is real, Jada. More real than anything I've felt in years." "Sure, feelings change," Jada said softly. "And when they do, people get hurt." "So you want to end this before it really begins?" Elliot asked. "Because you're afraid of what might happen?" "I want to be smart," Jada replied. "I've been hurt before, Elliot. I can't go through that again." "I'm not going to hurt you," Elliot promised, taking her hand. "You can't promise that," Jada said. "No one can." They sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of their different worlds pressing down on them. "I should go," Jada finally said, opening the car door. "Jada, wait," Elliot called. "Give us a chance, please. I'm not asking for forever right now. I'm just asking for a chance to show you that what we have is worth fighting for." Jada looked back at him, torn between her heart and her head. "I need time to think." "Take all the time you need," Elliot said. "I'll be here when you're ready." As she walked up to her apartment, Jada felt tears stinging her eyes. She'd known from the beginning that getting involved with Elliot Kingsley was a risk. What she hadn't expected was how much it would hurt to walk away. For the next week, Jada threw herself into work. She took extra shifts at the Blue Note, finished 3 freelance design projects, and spent hours organizing her father's record collection at the shop. Anything to keep her mind off Elliot Kingsley and the impossible choice she faced. Tamika watched her with growing concern. You can't avoid him forever," she said one evening as they closed up the record shop together. "I'm not avoiding him," Jada insisted. "I'm thinking. For a week?" Tamika raised an eyebrow. "Girl, you're hiding. And that's not like you." Jada sighed, sinking into her father's old chair behind the counter. "What am I supposed to do, Tamika? His mother hates me. His friends look down on me. Our worlds couldn't be more different. The only thing that matters is how he feels about you," Tamika said, "and how you feel about him. It's not that simple." "Love never is," Tamika shrugged, "but that doesn't mean you run from it." "Who said anything about love?" Jada protested. Tamika gave her a knowing look. "Your face says it every time someone mentions his name." Before Jada could respond, the bell above the shop door jingled. They both looked up, surprised to have a customer so close to closing time. It was Elliot. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, dressed more casually than Jada had ever seen him. Jeans, a simple button-down shirt, and a leather jacket. He held a small package in his hands. "Hi," he said, his eyes fixed on Jada. "Hi," she replied, her heart racing. Tamika looked between them and smiled. "I just remembered I have somewhere to be." "Lock up when you're done, Jada." She grabbed her purse and squeezed Jada's shoulder as she passed. "Nice to see you again, Elliot." After Tamika left, silence filled the shop. Elliot walked slowly toward the counter, taking in the rows of vinyl records and vintage posters. "So this was your dad's place," he said. Jada nodded. "He opened it 20 years ago. It was his dream, a place where music lovers could find treasures that weren't in the mainstream stores." "It has character," Elliot said, running his fingers along a shelf of jazz albums. "Like you." Jada felt her resolve weakening. "Why are you here, Elliot?" "Because I miss you," he said simply, "and because I have something for you." He placed the package on the counter between them. Jada hesitated, then unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a vintage vinyl record, her father's first and only album, recorded decades ago with a small jazz label. It was incredibly rare. Jada's own copy had been damaged in a move years ago. "How did you find this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have connections," Elliot said with a small smile. "It wasn't easy, but I knew how much it would mean to you." Jada ran her fingers over the cover, tears welling in her eyes. "This is... Thank you. I'm not trying to buy your affection," Elliot said quickly. "I just wanted to show you that I'm paying attention, that I care about what matters to you." "I know," Jada said softly, "and it means a lot." Elliot moved around the counter to stand beside her. "I've missed you, Jada. This past week has been empty. I needed time," Jada explained, "to figure out if what we're doing makes any sense." "And?" Elliot asked, hope and fear mingling in his voice. "And I'm still not sure," Jada admitted. "But I've missed you too." Elliot reached for her hand and she let him take it. "I don't care what my mother thinks, or Victoria, or anyone else. When I'm with you, I feel like myself for the first time in years. Not Elliot Kingsley, CEO, but just Elliot." "That's what scares me," Jada confessed. "What if that feeling doesn't last? What if you wake up one day and realize you want your old life back, the one where everything matches and makes sense?" "I never want to go back to that life," Elliot said firmly. "It wasn't real, it was safe, but it was empty." "You say that now," Jada said, "but we've only known each other for a month. That's not long enough to upend your entire life." "Sometimes a month is all it takes," Elliot countered. "My father used to say that most major business decisions are made in the first 30 seconds of a meeting. The rest is just paperwork." Despite herself, Jada smiled. "I'm not a business decision, Elliot." "No," he agreed, stepping closer. "You're much more important than that." He cupped her face gently, his eyes asking permission. Jada nodded slightly, and he kissed her, softly at first, then with growing intensity. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless. "I don't know if this is going to work," Jada whispered against his lips, "but I want to try." "That's all I'm asking for," Elliot said, holding her close. "A chance to show you that what we have is worth fighting for." The next few weeks were the happiest of Jada's life. She and Elliot settled into a rhythm, finding ways to blend their different worlds. He joined her at poetry readings and jazz nights. She accompanied him to business dinners and gallery openings. They learned to navigate the raised eyebrows and whispered comments, drawing strength from each other. One evening, as they walked through the park near Jada's apartment, Elliot brought up an unexpected topic. "There's a charity gala next weekend," he said, "for children's education. Kingsley & Coers is a major sponsor and I'm expected to attend." Sounds fancy, Jada commented. It is, Elliot admitted. Black tie, champagne, the works. But I'd like you to come with me, as my date. Jada stopped walking. Are you sure? Your mother will be there, won't she? And all your business associates? Exactly, Elliot said. I want them all to see who I've chosen to be with. I'm tired of hiding how I feel about you, Jada. I want to make it official. Official? Jada echoed. I want everyone to know that you're not just some fling or a phase, Elliot explained. You're the woman I'm falling in love with. The words hung in the air between them. Elliot looked as surprised as Jada felt, as if he hadn't planned to say it but couldn't hold it back. Love? Jada repeated, her voice small. Elliot took both her hands in his. Yes, love. I know it's fast, and I know it's scary, but it's true. I'm falling in love with you, Jada Rowe, and I don't care who knows it. Jada felt tears prick her eyes. I'm falling in love with you too, she admitted, and it terrifies me. Why? Elliot asked gently. Because I've never had anything this good in my life, Jada confessed, and I'm afraid of losing it, of losing you. You won't lose me, Elliot promised. Not if I have anything to say about it. They sealed the promise with a kiss, as the setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. For that moment at least, their different worlds didn't matter. They were just two people in love, facing the future together. The night of the charity gala arrived, and Jada stood in front of her mirror, nervousness churning in her stomach. After much searching, she'd found a vintage black gown at a consignment shop, simple but elegant, with delicate beading along the neckline. She'd paired it with her mother's pearls and the small diamond studs Elliot had given her for their 1-month anniversary, despite her protests about the expense. Tamika had helped her style her natural curls into an elegant updo, and for once Jada had let her friend talk her into wearing more makeup than usual. You look like a movie star, Tamika declared, standing back to admire her work. I feel like I'm playing dress-up, Jada admitted. No, Tamika shook her head. You look like you, just fancy you. When Elliot arrived to pick her up, his expression of awe confirmed Tamika's assessment. So you are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen, he said, his voice reverent. Jada blushed. You clean up pretty well yourself. Elliot looked handsome in his tuxedo, but it was the pride in his eyes as he looked at her that made Jada's heart skip a beat. He truly didn't care what anyone else thought. Tonight he was proud to have her on his arm. The gala was held at the Grand Ballroom of the Palmer House Hilton, one of Chicago's most historic and elegant venues. Crystal's chandeliers glittered overhead, and the room was filled with the city's elite in their finest attire. As they entered, Jada felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on them. She straightened her spine and lifted her chin, channeling her father's confidence. Walk with your head high, baby girl, he used to say. You belong anywhere you decide to be. Elliot kept his hand at the small of her back, a steady, reassuring presence as they moved through the crowd. He introduced her to business associates, politicians, and celebrities with the same proud smile. This is Jada Rowe, my girlfriend, he said each time, the word girlfriend spoken with unmistakable affection. Most people were polite, if somewhat surprised. A few were genuinely warm, particularly the wives of Elliot's older colleagues, who seemed to find his obvious infatuation charming. Then Margaret Kingsley appeared before them, elegant in midnight blue, her smile tight as she took in the sight of Jada on her son's arm. Elliot, darling, she air-kissed his cheek. And Miss Rowe, what a surprise to see you here. Jada is my date, Mother, Elliot said firmly. And she looks stunning, doesn't she? Margaret's smile didn't reach her eyes. Indeed, that's a lovely vintage gown. The way she said vintage made it clear she knew it wasn't designer. Jada refused to be embarrassed. Thank you, Mrs. Kingsley. I've always believed that true style is timeless. Margaret's eyes narrowed slightly at the implied rebuke. How philosophical of you. Elliot, Senator Wilson was asking for you. Something about the tech initiative you discussed last month. He can wait, Elliot said. I'm getting Jada a drink first. Don't be rude, Elliot, Margaret scolded. The senator is a very busy man. I'll keep Miss Rowe company while you speak with him. Elliot hesitated, looking at Jada. She gave him a small nod. It's fine, she assured him. Go. I can handle myself. After Elliot reluctantly left, Margaret's demeanor changed instantly. The polite smile vanished, replaced by cold assessment. Let's not pretend, Miss Rowe, she said. We both know what this is. And what is that, Mrs. Kingsley? Jada asked calmly. A phase, Margaret said dismissively. A rebellion. Elliot has always been stubborn, even as a child. The more I push, the more he resists. Or maybe he knows his own mind, Jada suggested. And his own heart. Margaret laughed, a brittle sound. Heart? My dear, men like Elliot don't lead with their hearts. They can't afford to. Do you have any idea what's at stake? Kingsley & Co. employs thousands of people. Elliot's decisions affect lives, economies, futures. He doesn't have the luxury of following his impulses. Love isn't an impulse, Jada said quietly. Margaret's eyes widened. Love? Has he said that to you? Jada remained silent, but her expression must have confirmed it. Oh, you poor naive girl, Margaret said, almost pitying. Elliot says many things in the heat of the moment. He's passionate, impulsive, but reality always wins in the end. What reality is that? Jada challenged. The reality that you have nothing in common, Margaret said bluntly. No shared background, no shared experiences, no shared future. What happens when the excitement fades? When he wants to discuss business strategy or investment portfolios, and you want to talk about jazz records and poetry? We find middle ground, Jada said. That's what people who care about each other do. Margaret shook her head. Middle ground is where dreams go to die, Miss Rowe. Elliot was raised for greatness. He has responsibilities, expectations, a legacy to uphold. And you don't think I fit into that legacy, Jada stated. Do you? Margaret countered. Be honest with yourself. Can you see yourself hosting dinner parties for senators and CEOs, managing multiple homes, joining boards and committees? That's Elliot's world. Jada hesitated, doubt creeping in despite her best efforts. Could she? Would she even want to? Margaret pressed her advantage. Elliot needs a partner who strengthens his position, not weakens it. Someone who understands the world he lives in because she was born to it, just as he was. Someone like Victoria, Jada said, the pieces falling into place. Victoria would be an excellent match, Margaret agreed. They have history, shared connections, compatible goals. But he doesn't love her, Jada pointed out. Love fades, Margaret said with certainty. Trust me on this. I loved Elliot's father with all my heart. It didn't stop him from leaving when someone newer, more exciting came along. For the first time, Jada saw beyond Margaret's cold exterior to the hurt beneath. This wasn't just about social status or business connections. Margaret was trying to protect her son from the pain she had experienced. I'm not going to hurt Elliot, Jada said softly. Not intentionally, perhaps, Margaret conceded. But hurt will come all the same, when the novelty wears off, when reality sets in, when you both realize that some gaps can't be bridged. Before Jada could respond, Elliot returned, his expression darkening as he sensed the tension between the two women. Everything okay? He asked, looking from his mother to Jada. Perfectly fine, Margaret said smoothly. We were just getting to know each other better. If you'll excuse me, I see the mayor has arrived. She glided away, elegant and untouchable. What did she say to you? Elliot demanded once his mother was out of earshot. Nothing I didn't expect, Jada said, trying to keep her voice steady. She thinks I'm wrong for you, that we're too different, that it won't last. Elliot's jaw tightened. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have left you alone with her. It's okay, Jada assured him, though in truth Margaret's words had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. She's just trying to protect you. I don't need protection, Elliot said firmly, especially not from you. He pulled her closer, and before Jada could react, he kissed her, right there in the middle of the ballroom, in front of Chicago's elite, including his disapproving mother. It wasn't a showy kiss, but a tender one, full of reassurance and promise. When they separated, Jada became aware of the whispers and stares around them. Elliot Kingsley, kissing a nobody in public. It would be all over the society pages tomorrow. Dance with me, Elliot said, leading her to the dance floor. As they swayed to the music, Jada rested her head on his shoulder. Your mother will never accept me, she whispered. She will, Elliot said with confidence. Once she sees how happy you make me, how much better I am with you than without you. And if she doesn't, then that's her loss, Elliot said, because I'm not giving you up. Not for her, not for anyone. Jada wanted to believe him, but as she caught sight of Margaret watching them from across the room, her expression cold and calculating, doubt whispered in her ear. What if Margaret was right? What if their differences were too great? What if love wasn't enough? The next morning, Jada woke to the sound of her phone buzzing repeatedly. She reached for it groggily, wondering who would be texting her so early on a Sunday. It was Tamika. Call me now, emergency. Concerned, Jada dialed her friend immediately. Have you seen it? Tamika demanded without preamble. Seen what? Jada asked, still half asleep. The article. It's all over social media. Some business blog ran a piece about you and Elliot. Fully awake now, Jada sat up. What article? What does it say? It's not good, Jay, Tamika warned. I'm sending you the link now. Jada's phone pinged with a message. She opened it to find an article from ChicagoBusiness.com titled, Kingsley's Charity Case. CEO's latest fling raises eyebrows. Her stomach dropped as she began to read. Chicago's business elite were shocked last night when Elliot Kingsley, CEO of Kingsley & Co., and one of the city's most eligible bachelors, arrived at the Children's Education Gala with an unexpected companion. Jada Rowe, a bartender and freelance designer from the South Side, seemed out of place among the city's power players, leading many to question Kingsley's judgment and his motives. It's classic rebellion, says one source close to the Kingsley family. Elliot has always pushed boundaries, but this goes beyond business risks. Dating someone so clearly beneath his social standing seems calculated to provoke his mother, Margaret Kingsley, who has long hoped her son would settle down with someone suitable. Others suggest a different motive. Some men like to play savior, another insider commented. They date women from lower socioeconomic backgrounds because it makes them feel powerful, like they're rescuing Cinderella. It rarely lasts once the novelty wears off. Whatever Kingsley's motives, the relationship has become the talk of Chicago's business community. Will this be a passing phase, or has one of Chicago's most powerful men truly fallen for his modern-day Cinderella? Either way, sources close to the family say Margaret Kingsley is deeply concerned about her son's latest choice. As for Ms. Rowe, whether she's a calculating social climber or a genuine romantic interest, she's certainly captured the attention of Chicago's elite, for now. Jada felt sick. The article was cruel, dismissive, and painfully public. There was even a photo of her and Elliot dancing, with a caption that read, Kingsley's Charity Project. The CEO dances with his latest fling at last night's Children's Education Gala. Jada, are you still there? Tamika's voice came through the phone. Yeah, Jada said, her voice hollow. I'm here. It's garbage, Tamika said firmly. Don't let it get to you. But it was already too late for that. The words had sliced through her confidence like a knife. A charity case, a rebellion, beneath his social standing. All her fears laid bare in black and white for the world to see. Her phone buzzed with another call. Elliot. She couldn't talk to him right now. Not while the hurt was so fresh. She let it go to voicemail. Minutes later, a text from him. I've seen the article. It's trash. Please call me. Then another. Jada, please. Don't let them win. And another. I'm coming over. Jada texted back quickly. Don't. I need some time. His response was immediate. How much time? She didn't know how to answer that. How much time did it take to recover from public humiliation? How much time to rebuild the confidence that had been shattered? How much time to decide if love was worth this kind of pain? I don't know, she finally replied. I'll call you when I'm ready. She turned off her phone and curled up in bed, pulling the covers over her head, as if she could hide from the world and its cruel judgments. The worst part wasn't even the article itself. It was the doubt it had planted. What if they were right? What if she was just a novelty, a rebellion, a phase? What if Elliot did see her as some kind of charity case? She remembered Margaret's words from the night before. Middle ground is where dreams go to die. Maybe there was no middle ground for them. Maybe they were kidding themselves, thinking they could bridge worlds so far apart. For 3 days, Jada avoided everyone. She called in sick to the Blue Note, turned down freelance work, and kept her phone off. She needed space to think, to process, to decide what she really wanted. On the 4th day, she finally turned her phone back on. It immediately exploded with notifications, missed calls, texts, voicemails. Most were from Elliot, growing increasingly worried. Some were from Tamika, checking on her. A few were from numbers she didn't recognize, probably reporters looking for a comment on the article. She was about to call Tamika when there was a knock at her door. Cautiously, she peered through the peephole, expecting to see Elliot. Instead, it was her father's old friend and mentor, Ray, the man who had introduced her at the Blue Note the night Elliot had first heard her sing. She opened the door. Uncle Ray, what are you doing here? Ray, a tall man in his 60s with salt and pepper dreadlocks, gave her a concerned look. Checking on you, baby girl. You haven't been to the club in days. We're worried. Jada sighed, stepping back to let him in. I'm fine, just needed some time alone. Ray looked around the apartment, taking in the unwashed dishes and the blanket nest on the couch. You look fine. Jada managed a small smile. Okay, maybe not fine, but I'm handling it. By hiding? Ray raised an eyebrow. That's not the Jada Rowe I know. That's not Marcus's daughter. The mention of her father made Jada's eyes fill with tears. I miss him, Uncle Ray. He would know what to tell me right now. Ray sat beside her on the couch, his presence comforting and familiar. Your daddy was the wisest man I ever knew. You know what he used to say about love? Jada shook her head. He said, love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about seeing someone perfectly. That man could see straight through to a person's soul. Ray took her hand. What do you see when you look at this Elliot fellow? Jada thought about it. I see someone who's spent his whole life following rules. His mother's rules, society's rules. Someone who's only now learning who he really is. Someone who makes me feel valued and heard. And does he see you? The real you? I think so, Jada said softly. He doesn't try to change me. He seems to love the things that make me different from the women he usually dates. Then why are you hiding from him? Jada sighed. Because I'm afraid, Uncle Ray. Afraid that what we have can't last. That our worlds are too different. That I'll end up hurt. Fear is a thief, baby girl, Ray said. It steals your joy, your peace, your chances. Your daddy never let fear stop him from loving your mama, even though everyone told him it wouldn't work out. A famous jazz musician and a quiet librarian from the suburbs. People said they were too different. And they were right, Jada pointed out. Mom left when I was 3. She did, Ray nodded. But your daddy never regretted loving her. Not for 1 minute. You know what he told me once? He said, even knowing how it ends, I'd do it all again. Because loving her gave me Jada, and she's the best thing I ever did. Tears slid down Jada's cheeks. I don't know if I'm brave enough, Uncle Ray. You're Marcus Rowe's daughter, Ray said firmly. Courage runs in your blood. But whatever you decide, decide it on your terms. Not because of some nasty article, not because of his mother, not because of fear. Decide based on what's in your heart. After Ray left, Jada sat for a long time thinking about his words. Then she picked up her phone and made a call, not to Elliot, but to Tamika. I need a favor, she said when her friend answered. Can you cover my shift at the Blue Note tonight? There's something I have to do. Elliot sat in his office staring at the city skyline without really seeing it. It had been 4 days since the gala, 4 days since that vicious article, 4 days since Jada had gone silent. He'd tried everything, calls, texts, even going to her apartment, though she hadn't answered the door. He'd threatened legal action against the blog that published the article, but the damage was already done. His mother had called, of course, her voice full of false sympathy. It's for the best, darling, she'd said. Better to end it now before you're both in too deep. But Elliot was already in too deep. He loved Jada, her strength, her honesty, her ability to see through the facade of wealth and status to the person beneath. Without her, his world felt colorless and cold. Mr. Kingsley? His assistant's voice came through the intercom. There's a Miss Rowe here to see you. Elliot's heart leaped. Send her in immediately. The door opened, and there she was, looking tired but determined, wearing her favorite corduroy jacket and a vintage dress. Her natural curls were loose around her face, and she wore no makeup. She had never looked more beautiful to him. Jada, he breathed, rising from his desk. Hi, she said, her voice steady but quiet. I've been so worried, Elliot said, resisting the urge to pull her into his arms. Are you okay? No, Jada admitted. That article... It hurt, Elliot. It made me question everything about us, about me, about what I'm doing here. It was garbage, Elliot said firmly. Written by someone who doesn't know me, doesn't know you, doesn't know us. But it raised questions I've been afraid to ask, Jada said. Are we fooling ourselves? Can this really work? Are we just too different? Elliot moved closer, needing to touch her but afraid she'd pull away. Do you love me? He asked simply. Jada looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Yes, she whispered. That's what makes this so hard. If we love each other, nothing else matters, Elliot insisted. Everything else matters, Jada countered. Your mother, your friends, your business associates, they'll never accept me. I'll always be the bartender, the charity case, the girl from the wrong side of the tracks. I don't care what they think, Elliot said. But I do, Jada admitted. I don't want to be the reason you're alienated from your family. I don't want to be the reason people question your judgment. I don't belong in a tabloid, Elliot, and I sure as hell won't be your contradiction. Is that what you think you are to me? Elliot asked, hurt in his voice. A contradiction, a novelty. I don't know what I am to you, Jada said honestly. I just know that I can't live with the scrutiny, the judgment, the waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's too much pressure. Elliot felt panic rising in his chest. She was slipping away from him and he didn't know how to stop it. Tell me what to do, he pleaded. Tell me how to fix this. I don't think you can, Jada said sadly. Some things can't be fixed, Elliot. Some gaps can't be bridged. I don't believe that, Elliot said fiercely. I refuse to believe that. Jada took a deep breath. I came here today because I needed to say this in person. I care about you, more than I've ever cared about anyone. But I need to step back. I need to figure out if what we have is worth all the pain and judgment that comes with it. It is, Elliot said without hesitation. It's worth everything. Maybe to you, Jada said. You're used to the spotlight. I'm not. I don't know if I can live my life under a microscope, having every move judged, every intention questioned. So you're giving up? Elliot asked, anger mixing with his hurt. Just like that? I'm taking a step back, Jada corrected. There's a difference. How long? Elliot demanded. How long do you need? I don't know, Jada admitted. I just know I can't make this decision with all this noise in my head. I need clarity. Elliot wanted to argue, to fight, to convince her that they could overcome anything together. But he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the toll this was taking on her. Pushing her now would only drive her further away. Okay, he said finally, his voice breaking. Take the time you need. But know this. I'm not giving up on us, Jada. Not now, not ever. Jada nodded, tears finally spilling onto her cheeks. I hope you're right. I hope we're stronger than all the forces trying to pull us apart. We are, Elliot said with conviction. We will be. Jada stepped forward and kissed him gently, a kiss that felt too much like goodbye. Then she turned and walked out of his office, leaving Elliot standing alone, his heart breaking with every step she took away from him. As the door closed behind her, Elliot made a decision. If Jada needed time, he would give it to her, but he wouldn't sit idle while their love story unraveled. It was time to take a stand, to show her and the world exactly what she meant to him. The question was how. 2 weeks passed. For Jada, they were the longest 2 weeks of her life. She threw herself into work, taking extra shifts at the Blue Note and accepting every freelance design job that came her way. Anything to keep her mind off Elliot and the ache in her heart that wouldn't go away. Tamika watched her with concern. You're working yourself to death, she said one evening as Jada sat at her kitchen table, sketching logo designs until her fingers cramped. I'm fine, Jada insisted, not looking up from her work. Have you talked to him? Tamika asked gently. Jada shook her head. No, he's respecting my request for space. And has the space helped? Do you know what you want now? Jada put down her pencil and sighed. I want him, Tamika. I love him. But I don't know if love is enough to bridge our worlds. Maybe you're making this more complicated than it needs to be, Tamika suggested. Love should be simple. Either you want to be with him or you don't. Nothing about Elliot Kingsley is simple, Jada said with a sad smile. His life comes with strings attached. Expectations, judgments, scrutiny. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that. Girl, you're the strongest person I know, Tamika said firmly. The question isn't whether you're strong enough, it's whether he's worth it. Before Jada could respond, her phone rang. It was Ray, calling from the Blue Note. Jada, honey, you need to get down here, he said, his voice urgent. What's wrong? Jada asked, immediately concerned. Is the club okay? The club is fine, Ray assured her. But there's something you need to see. Someone you need to hear. Who? Just come, Ray insisted. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Curiosity piqued, Jada agreed. 30 minutes later, she and Tamika walked into the Blue Note to find it packed, standing room only, which was unusual for a Tuesday night. The crowd was a strange mix. Regular patrons in casual clothes mingled with people in business suits and designer dresses. Jada spotted several faces she recognized from the charity gala. What's going on? She asked Ray, who was waiting for them near the door. See for yourself, Ray said, nodding toward the stage. Jada looked up and froze. Elliot was on stage, sitting at the piano. He wore a simple button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him in public. He was talking to the crowd, his voice carrying through the club's sound system. Thanks for coming out tonight, he was saying. Especially those of you who had to leave your comfort zones to be here. This earned a few chuckles from the suit-wearing crowd. Most of you know me as a businessman, but tonight, I'm here as just a man who's made a lot of mistakes in his life, but who's trying to fix the biggest one. Jada felt her heart race as Elliot continued. 2 weeks ago, I let the woman I love walk away because I didn't know how to fight for her. I didn't know how to prove that what we have is real and worth every struggle. Tonight, I'm trying to fix that. His eyes scanned the crowd and found her standing by the door. Their gazes locked, and the rest of the room seemed to fade away. "Jada," he said, his voice soft but clear through the microphone, "this is for you." He began to play the piano, something Jada didn't even know he could do. The melody was familiar, a jazz standard her father used to play. And then, to her complete shock, Elliot began to sing. His voice wasn't polished or trained, but it was rich with emotion, cracking occasionally on the higher notes. He sang about finding love in unexpected places, about breaking rules and building new ones, about seeing someone perfectly despite an imperfect world. Tears filled Jada's eyes as she listened. Elliot Kingsley, powerful CEO, controlled businessman, was making himself vulnerable in front of everyone, risking embarrassment and judgment, all for her. When the song ended, the club erupted in applause. Elliot stood from the piano and made his way through the crowd toward Jada. People stepped aside, creating a path between them. "What are you doing?" Jada asked when he reached her, her voice barely above a whisper. "Fighting for us," Elliot said simply. "I've been taking piano lessons for the past 2 weeks. Ray's been helping me." Jada glanced at Ray, who grinned unapologetically. "Your daddy always said music speaks when words fail." The older man shrugged. "Jada," Elliot took her hands in his, "I've spent the last 2 weeks thinking about what you said, about not belonging in a tabloid, about not wanting to be my contradiction. And you were right. You don't belong in a tabloid. You belong in the spotlight, recognized for your talent, your heart, your incredible spirit." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. "This is for you." "What is it?" Jada asked, confused. "The deed to a storefront on Michigan Avenue," Elliot said, "and the business license for Row Designs. Your own studio, Jada. Your dream." Jada stared at him in shock. "Elliot, I can't accept this. I told you, it's not a gift," Elliot interrupted. "It's an investment. One of the smartest investments Kingsley & Kober has ever made. I've shown your portfolio to our marketing team, and they agree. You're exceptional. The studio is yours to run however you want. All I ask is that you consider taking on some of our clients." "This is—" Jada struggled for words. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll hear me out," Elliot requested. "There's more." He gestured to the crowd, and for the first time Jada noticed a familiar face. James Parker, Elliot's oldest friend and business partner. "James has been helping me set something up," Elliot explained. "A foundation in your father's name. The Marcus Rowe Music Education Fund. We're going to provide instruments and lessons to kids from underprivileged neighborhoods, kids like you were, with talent and heart but limited resources." Jada's hand flew to her mouth, tears flowing freely now. "You did this for me?" "For you," Elliot confirmed, "and for us. I wanted to show you that our different worlds don't have to stay different, that we can build something new together, something that honors where you come from and where I come from, something that makes a difference." The crowd had gone quiet, watching their exchange with rapt attention. Among them, Jada noticed Margaret Kingsley standing near the bar, her expression unreadable. "There's one more thing," Elliot said, his voice dropping lower. "The most important thing." He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a small velvet box. Gasps echoed through the club as he dropped to one knee in front of her. "Elliot," Jada breathed, her heart pounding. "I know it's fast," he said, looking up at her with pure love in his eyes. "I know we have obstacles to overcome, but I also know that I love you, Jada Rowe. I love your strength, your honesty, your talent, your heart. I love that you don't care about my money or my status. I love that you challenge me to be better, to be real." He opened the box to reveal a stunning but understated ring, a single emerald surrounded by small diamonds, set in white gold. "This was my grandmother's," Elliot explained. "Not the Kingsley side, my father's mother. She was a teacher from a working-class family who married above her station, as they said back then. My grandfather's family disapproved, just like people disapprove of us, but they built a beautiful life together, based on love and respect and shared values." He took a deep breath. "Jada Rowe, will you marry me? Will you help me build a life that combines the best of both our worlds? Will you be my partner, my equal, my heart?" Time seemed to stand still as Jada looked down at this man, this powerful, successful man who had humbled himself before her, who had put his heart on display for everyone to see, a man who loved her enough to fight for her, to change for her, to build bridges between their worlds. "I'm not here to teach you how to feel," she said softly, echoing her words from weeks ago. "Good," Elliot replied, a smile tugging at his lips. "I want you to teach me how to stay." In that moment, Jada knew her answer. All the doubts, all the fears, all the obstacles, they paled in comparison to the love she felt for this man. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, I'll marry you." The club erupted in cheers as Elliot slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with all the love and promise of their future together. When they finally broke apart, Jada noticed Margaret making her way toward them, her expression still guarded. Elliot tensed beside her, ready for a confrontation. "Mother," he said formally, as Margaret reached them, "as you can see, I've made my decision." Margaret looked at Jada, then at the ring on her finger, then back at her son. "So you have," she said, her voice surprisingly soft. "May I speak with your fiancé for a moment? Alone?" Elliot hesitated, looking at Jada questioningly. She nodded. "It's okay," she assured him. "I've got this." Reluctantly, Elliot stepped away, keeping a watchful eye on them from a short distance. "That was quite a performance," Margaret said once they were relatively private. "It wasn't a performance," Jada corrected. "It was real. Elliot is real with me, maybe for the first time in his life." Margaret studied her for a long moment. "You truly love my son, don't you?" "With all my heart," Jada said simply. "And you're not intimidated by all this?" Margaret gestured around, indicating not just the club, but the world Elliot inhabited. "The scrutiny, the expectations, the responsibilities." "I'm terrified," Jada admitted honestly, "but Elliot is worth it. What we have together is worth it." Something shifted in Margaret's expression, a softening, a reluctant recognition. "My husband said that once, about his secretary, that she was worth it, worth throwing away our marriage, our family, our life together." "I'm not here to break anything, Mrs. Kingsley," Jada said gently. "I'm here to help Elliot build something, something real and lasting and good." Margaret's eyes glistened with unexpected tears. "He reminds me of his father sometimes, the good parts, the passion, the determination. Robert was like that when we first met, before success changed him, before he stopped seeing me." Jada felt a sudden understanding wash over her. Margaret's coldness, her controlling nature, it all stemmed from heartbreak, from fear of seeing her son make what she perceived as the same mistake that had cost her her happiness. "Elliot will never stop seeing me," Jada said with quiet confidence. "And I will never stop seeing him, the real him, not just the CEO or the Kingsley heir. I promise you that." Margaret took a deep breath, composing herself. "Well," she said, straightening her spine, "if my son is determined to marry you, I suppose I should start calling you Jada. It wasn't acceptance, not quite, but it was a beginning." "Thank you, Margaret," Jada replied, offering a tentative smile. Margaret nodded once, then turned to Elliot, who immediately rejoined them. "You've made your choice, Elliot. I hope for both your sakes that it's the right one." "It is, Mother," Elliot said firmly, putting his arm around Jada's waist. "The best choice I've ever made." Margaret looked at them together, her powerful son and this young woman who had somehow broken through all his defenses. "Time will tell," she said, but there was less certainty in her voice, less disapproval. "Congratulations to you both." As Margaret walked away, Elliot turned to Jada. "Are you okay? What did she say to you?" "She's trying," Jada said. "That's all we can ask for right now." Elliot shook his head in wonder. "You're remarkable, you know that. Anyone else would have told her off after everything she's said and done." "Your mother is scared," Jada explained. "Scared of losing you, scared of seeing you hurt the way she was hurt. I understand fear, Elliot. It almost cost me you." Elliot pulled her close. "Nothing will cost you me. Not ever." As the celebration continued around them, Ray took the stage again. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "in honor of this special occasion, I think it's time for a song from our own Jada Rowe." The crowd cheered, and Elliot smiled encouragingly. "Go," he said. "Show them who you are." Jada made her way to the stage, suddenly aware of the diverse crowd watching her. Regular jazz lovers in casual clothes, business executives in expensive suits, society women in designer dresses. Two worlds colliding, just like in her relationship with Elliot. As the band began to play one of her father's compositions, Jada felt a sense of rightness wash over her. This was who she was, a woman with music in her soul, creativity in her heart, and now love in her life. A woman who didn't have to choose between worlds but could bridge them. She sang with all the emotion of the past weeks, the love, the fear, the doubt, the hope. And as she sang, she watched Elliot watching her, his eyes filled with pride and love and certainty. When the song ended, he was the first to applaud, standing tall and unashamed of his feelings. One by one, others joined him. Ray, Tamika, James, even Victoria, and a few other skeptical socialites. And finally, Margaret Kingsley herself, offering a small but genuine nod of acknowledgement. Later that night, as they stood on the balcony of Elliot's penthouse looking out at the city lights, Jada turned the ring on her finger, still getting used to its weight and meaning. "Are you sure about this?" she asked softly. "About us? It won't be easy." "The best things never are," Elliot replied, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "But we're stronger together than apart. You make me better, Jada. More real, more honest, more alive. And you make me braver," Jada admitted, leaning back against him. "Brave enough to dream bigger than I ever have before." "So what happens now?" Elliot asked, his chin resting on top of her head. "Now we build something new," Jada said. "Not your world or my world, but our world. Together." Elliot turned her in his arms, looking down at her with all the love in his heart. "Together," he agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss. 6 months later, Jada stood in the doorway of her design studio on Michigan Avenue, watching as clients and friends mingled at the grand opening celebration. Rowe Designs had already secured contracts with several major Chicago businesses, including, but not limited to, Kingsley & Cub, and Elliot had kept his word. The business was entirely hers to run, with no strings attached. He had helped with the initial investment and connections, but the success of the studio was due to Jada's talent and hard work. "Proud of you, baby girl," Ray said, appearing beside her with a glass of champagne. "Your daddy would be too." "I know," Jada smiled, accepting the glass. "I feel him here sometimes watching over me." Across the room, Elliot was deep in conversation with James, and surprisingly, Margaret. The older woman had slowly, very slowly, begun to accept Jada's place in her son's life. It wasn't always easy, and there were still tense moments, but there was progress. As if feeling her gaze, Elliot looked up and smiled at her, that special smile he reserved just for her. He excused himself from the conversation and made his way to her side. "How does it feel to be Chicago's hottest new designer?" he asked, slipping an arm around her waist. "Surreal," Jada admitted, "but good, really good." "You deserve all of it," Elliot said. "Your talent is finally getting the recognition it deserves." Jada looked around at the space that had once been just a dream, at the walls displaying her designs, at the team of young artists she'd hired from her old neighborhood, at the diverse crowd of people from all walks of life who had come to support her. "We're really doing it," she said softly, "building something new together." "Just the beginning," Elliot promised, kissing her temple. "Wait until they see what we do next." "Which is?" Jada asked, curious. Elliot's eyes twinkled with excitement. "The Marcus Rowe Music Center. The foundation has raised enough funds to buy that old theater in your neighborhood. We're going to renovate it into a performance space and music education center." Jada's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Completely," Elliot assured her. "The plans are being drawn up now. I wanted it to be a surprise." Tears of joy filled Jada's eyes. "That's incredible, thank you." "Don't thank me," Elliot said. "It was actually my mother's idea." "What?" Jada couldn't hide her shock. Elliot nodded toward Margaret, who was now examining one of Jada's designs with what appeared to be genuine interest. "She's trying, in her own way. She said if you're going to be a Kingsley, you should have a legacy project that honors your roots." "That's unexpected," Jada said, still processing. "She's not all bad," Elliot said with a small smile. "Just protective, and afraid of being hurt again. Something you help me understand." Jada squeezed his hand, grateful for how far they'd come. "Speaking of being a Kingsley, we still have a wedding to plan." "Whatever kind of wedding you want," Elliot promised. "Big, small, fancy, simple. I don't care as long as you're there." "How about something in between?" Jada suggested. "Something that represents both of us. Elegant but real. Meaningful." "Like us," Elliot agreed. As the evening continued, Jada found herself in conversation with Victoria, who had arrived late with her husband. The woman who had once been so dismissive now regarded Jada with something approaching respect. "Your designs are actually quite impressive," Victoria admitted, gesturing to the portfolio on display. "Kingsley & Co.'s new branding looks better than it has in years." "Thank you," Jada said, genuinely appreciative of the compliment. Victoria hesitated, then added, "I may have been hasty in my judgment of you." It was as close to an apology as Victoria was likely to get, and Jada accepted it with grace. "We all make assumptions sometimes. The important thing is being willing to revise them when proven wrong," Victoria nodded, a new understanding passing between them. They would never be close friends, but they could be civil, even respectful of each other's place in Elliot's life. As the party wound down, Jada found herself back on the small stage that had been set up in the corner of the studio. Ray and some of the musicians from the Blue Note had been providing background music all evening. "Before everyone leaves," she said into the microphone, "I want to thank you all for coming tonight. This studio represents a dream come true for me, but it's also a testament to what can happen when we break down barriers between different worlds, different expectations, different dreams." Her eyes found Elliot in the crowd, his gaze warm and supportive. "Someone very special taught me that the best things in life aren't the ones that come easily. They're the ones we fight for, the ones we build together, the ones that challenge us to be more than we thought possible." She gestured to Ray, who began playing a familiar melody, the song her father had written for her mother all those years ago, a song about finding love in unexpected places. As Jada began to sing, the room grew quiet. In that moment, looking out at the diverse crowd, jazz club regulars standing shoulder to shoulder with business executives, her old friends mixing with Elliot's society acquaintances, she felt a sense of completion. Two worlds, once separate, now intertwined. Not because one had conquered the other, but because love had built a bridge between them. After the song, as the last guests were leaving, Elliot pulled Jada into a quiet corner. "Have I told you today how much I love you?" he asked, his voice low and intimate. "You might have mentioned it," Jada smiled, wrapping her arms around his neck, "but I don't mind hearing it again." "I love you, Jada Rowe," Elliot said, his eyes serious despite his smile. "You broke every rule I ever made about relationships, and I've never been happier." "I love you too, Elliot Kingsley," Jada replied, "even if you are a suit." He laughed at their private joke, then grew serious again. "You know, my mother asked me something interesting today. She wanted to know if you were the exception to my rule." "And what did you tell her?" Jada asked curiously. Elliot brushed a curl from her face, his touch gentle and reverent. "I told her you weren't my exception. You're my standard now." Jada's heart swelled with love and certainty. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, not as opposites, but as equals, building a life that honored both their pasts while creating something entirely new. In the end, their different worlds hadn't kept them apart. Instead, they had created a better world together, one where love wasn't defined by bank accounts or social standing, but by the courage to see each other perfectly, flaws and all. And that was a world worth living in.